Okay, so you just had your introductory lesson with Loxley String Studios, and this is a brief instructional video just to remind you of a couple things that you're going to want to keep in mind during your next practice sessions before we get together next. Okay, so there's 2 or 3 main areas that we want to speak to. One is going to obviously be cello placement, which is a little difficult to see in this limited a picture, but what you want to remember is that there are several key sort of touching points on the cello, okay, for the beginner sort of arrangement here. And 2 of them are slightly off the camera, but they're pretty much on the insides of your knees. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to go ahead and have the left knee on this side be kind of in on the point of the cello right here. Okay? And that will bring your right knee more into this little curvy spot right here on the cello. The last point is obviously against your chest, and for me it sits kind of right here in the middle of my chest. But there are a couple different sort of arrangements that you can have. You can have it a little higher, a little lower. We can work through that some more in the lesson. If you see the sort of side view of this, notice the angle of the cello. Mine is pretty sort of medium. Some people play a little bit more vertically, some people more horizontally, Rostropovich. I'm kind of right here in the middle, okay? One of my students said they noticed it was kind of like a 60-30, 30-60-90 triangle, you know? So that's one thing to kind of look at. Notice also that there's a little bit of distance here between my shoulder and the cello. I usually say about a fist worth. You can put a fist in between this left shoulder and the instrument. That's important because if the instrument sags too much down onto the shoulder, it will be hard to have the left hand be properly placed. Okay? So, that's just a quick note on instrument placement. This is one of the beginning things that we want to get under wraps right away, is this beginner bow hold. Okay? And really, I think of it as in a couple key points. These last 3 fingers, 1, 2, 3, really kind of group together. I call my younger students, I call this the penguin bow hold, because they really do gather kind of close to each other. Look, there's just a little bit of spacing there. Okay? And notice that the pinky really lines up with the very end of this black portion here, which is called the frog. Okay? So when we get this pinky on first and kind of securely on the end, then these other 2 fingers, notice just a little bit of space, but really grouped mostly together. Then the first finger is going to have more space right in here, about another finger's worth of space, so that it can come out front, and notice how it bends. Okay? Now notice these fingers, they're not trying to grab the bow up here, they're really just kind of dangling. That's an important thing to see. Okay? These are pretty loose in here. They don't really do a whole lot other than help balance. First finger does quite a bit of the work, and it stays curved around the stick just like that to help put some good weight into the bow when you need to. Okay? Another thing to notice is when I turn my hand this way, just how far back my hand is. My hand is really very flat and more behind the bow than it is up on top of the bow. This is one thing that some people will sometimes do slightly differently. You really want to round these fingers and get this bow hand sort of down and a little bit flattened so it's not standing straight up. When you stand straight up, you've got flat fingers. Flat fingers make for tension. Okay? Last thing on the bow hold here is that the thumb on the back, and let me scoot around here so you can get a better look at this. The thumb on the back of the hold really stays rather round. It's not flattened out like this. It's rounded. And this helps the whole rest of the hand to be nice and softened. Okay? So this is what you end up with. Okay? Beginner bow hold. Great. Lastly, you might want to delve into some of the left hand. And really, a lot of the left hand is every bit as similar as far as what you want it to be lack of tension, rounded shape, all this kind of stuff as the right hand is. Okay, and so what I'm doing is I'm lowering the cello so you can really get a good look at what my left hand is going to look like. Okay, now obviously this will be a little bit different because the cello is not up here with me, but it's very much the same as you see as I'm doing for you here. Notice a couple of things. First of all, nice rounded fingers, not all the way up on the tips like this, but a little bit more on, say, the meat of your fingers. Okay, the pads, as some people call them. Okay. Now you also notice here, this is what Suzuki calls the EWP line, elbow, wrist to pinky, okay? And you notice that this is kind of as straight and flat as it possibly can be. You don't want angles like this in your hand or angles like this in your hand. You want it to be as flat and natural and calm and relaxed as it possibly can be all the way through here to make sure that these these tendons, excuse me, have as much of a chance as they can, okay? Notice, even up here, nice and round, not flat, round. Everything we do, nice and round, okay? So these are just very quick beginner tips to remind you of these three key areas: cello placement, left hand, bow hand. Hope these were just some helpful reminders before I see you next week for your second lesson. Thanks so much.